This is Kieran with New Cleveland Radio, and it is time for Talking Life with Alicia. And before I have Alicia jump in and get the conversation going, um, for all of you who listened in last month, and we had a nice group of listeners, um, we said we were going to open up tonight's show and you could join us. And we have that link that is still sitting out there. So it's possible somebody will join us. But the conversation we had, people were commenting, oh, this is necessary. I really want to participate. And yet, here it is, 6:04 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And it's Alicia and me, which is fine. But so many of you wanted to share. And I'm just wondering where you all are. And they're not going to answer me because they're not on.
Right.
So, as a therapist, I'm
Mhm.
sure you go through this to some degree with your patients. People want help. They want to share a situation, but then they're almost afraid to start talking about it because it may change something about them.
Well, sure. I mean, change is hard, and you know, it's exploring the unknown, and I think that's just an everyday occurrence. I mean, who wants to be smacked in the head with your life's issues? I mean, for real, who really wants to? In a way, it's torturous. Like, why? I look at it like I'm a fireman. Like, hey, I'm running to the fire.
Yeah.
People usually run away from a fire, so it is a weird thing. But I think when you talk about sexuality and you talk about sex and you talk about relationships, even to this day, it's taboo. We all want to talk about it, but we really don't want to talk about it, or who's going to be listening or who's not going to be listening. Am I going to upset myself? Am I going to upset my partner? Am I going to upset my parents? Oh my God, my grandmother's probably, in a grave twirling around. And I mean, and at the end of the day, sex is taboo. Human sexuality is taboo in the United States. I would say that culturally in the US it's an issue. It's the Madonna whore thing. Oh, we want girls to be all sexy and all this, but my God, we want you to be pure as the driven snow. And, and it's a juxtaposition for women, but at the same time too, we have expectations for men. So it's a fun topic. I love it. I love talking about it. But I'm also very comfortable. And who knows why I'm so comfortable with it. I just think that maybe it has to do with how I was raised, or maybe how I view people in its totality. I have no idea. But there's still this thing of, oh my gosh, can we really talk about this?
But, I find it strange because during the day when I'm in between programs and I'm doing paperwork, I will turn on Netflix. And the interesting part is almost every Netflix, whether it's a series or a movie, they're sexual. I mean, sexual to the point that maybe a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have kept my office door open, if my son was around, because typically it's not something that, a mom and a 30-year-old son would watch together. But I have finally gotten comfortable with it because it's life, it's things that, we've experienced. And so we watch it on TV. We know that porn is the number one site that people go to on their computers. I mean, the numbers are just outrageous. And yet, just to talk about, you know, what the difference between being in love
Mhm.
and having a sexual relationship. And
Mhm.
we know there is a difference.
Absolutely.
So I just find it odd that we are so behind the times, that we aren't talking about it. And I think how we came up sort of with this subject, um, I had sort of put it out there that, you know, I'm going through pelvic floor treatment.
Mhm.
And the treatment is not sexual, but it feels sexual.
Sure.
And I chose to share that because so many women are experiencing pelvic floor issues. And unless you can talk about the fact that, yes, sometimes it means, I can't have a relationship with somebody because it is so painful. But if we don't talk about it, how are we going to know what's right and what's wrong? How are we
Well,
going to?
not only that, but getting the correct information. And you're talking about pelvic floor issues, but that does have to do with sexuality.
Oh,
It, does-
absolutely.
it's a conversation. Yeah, I'm going to be 45 this year, and yes, I still get my period. And no, I'm not on birth control. And yes, I have an IUD. And there. So here, we all know about the inside of my body
Yeah.
parts. And somebody had said to me, or like, why don't you just get a hysterectomy? And I'm like, because I'm not really in, you know what, lift, talk, snip, whatever. Yeah, I'm all for that. But removing like something that's like structural, like, no, I'm not really interested in that. Thanks. Um, but it's even more than that. Like, so my son who's 12 today, and funny enough, he has his first health class. It's not really his first health class, but it's his first 12-year-old health class.
Got it.
And apparently he was bored in it today. So sorry, but that's probably because the fact of his mother is probably too open about it. And I have been talking about puberty at nauseum. And so, because I don't want him to fear it. I don't want him pubic hair, although I don't like it, is natural and
Yeah.
normal. And I want him to be able to talk to me about anything. So I actually don't have a problem talking to it about him with him. He does. I mean, we've all seen. I hope we've all seen. Roz Faulkner. Yeah, Faulkner. That's me. I'm just like, oh, let's celebrate this. Like, oh, honey, like, I think I've even asked him, like, hey, honey, have you masturbated yet? And he was like, no. And I mean, and I am this mom and I'm ridiculous, but I'm sitting here thinking about it and I was like, I had enough guy friends to know what they did with socks when they were a certain
Oh,
age.
absolutely. Yes.
I'm thinking because I know about sex toys, why not get him one that's all contained and he can just clean it up and then he can have a no drawer or a toy drawer, whatever the hell he wants to call it. And so I say this to my dad of all people, and he's looking at me, he's like, I got this. Like, and he's like, where is this coming from? And I'm like, I don't want to deal with the socks. I don't want to deal with the socks. Like, socks are for your feet. We have towels. Like, I'm not upset about the masturbation. I just didn't like, because I want him to be comfortable.
Right.
And I want him to know that it's okay and that there's no shame in it. And my dad's like, that's really all you have to say. You don't have to go in here. Let's go on this website and let's pick out a toy for you. And I'm like, well, because that's where my head went. My head went to, let's go on to, one of the websites that you prefer or I prefer, and that, we'll look at sex toys for men, sex toys for women. And I honestly did not think there was anything inappropriate about it. It didn't even cross my mind. Because quite frankly, I'd rather have him experiment with that.
And I can understand what you're saying.
you
Yes.
know and then instead of like then at least somewhat know, like, when he gets around a girl or whatever, like it's not going to be a big deal. Even, and I think that's the other issue too, is sex is a big deal if you make it a big deal. No, trust me. I have a rule: you don't come home pregnant, and you don't get anyone pregnant. Like that. That's just, there's too much. Babies create problems.
Right.
At any age, babies create problems in healthy relationships and non-healthy relationships. So it's not even that, but I think it's just, the comfort level. But with that comes consent. I mean, like, it's not just A, B, C, and like it's so murky, but then it's like he roughhouses with his sister. I have a 9-year-old, almost a 9-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And we're a very touchy-feely family, and they cuddle. And sometimes I look at them and I kind of go, is that too close? Like, and then my daughter's like, get away from me, and he won't because of his impulsivity, of his ADHD. And now I got to talk to him about consent. So I'm teaching my daughter that, like, boys, like boys or girls, matter of fact, I'm just like, nobody has a right to invade your space.
Absolutely.
But then she's got her brother who's constantly invading her space. And I'm now having to talk to him about consent. And now he's 12. And that can be dangerous for him because there's a girl and or a boy, and what does that?
Well, and it can open up a Pandora's box, and that's not what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is provide the information so he's comfortable
Right.
with what he's going through. And so many of us didn't have that when we were growing up, and we don't even have it now when we go through body changes. Okay.
Right. Menopause.
And yeah, how many women, women will talk about hot flashes with menopause, but that's about it. They may talk a little bit about dryness, but they don't.
Vaginal
Right.
dryness. Let's call it what it's vaginal
Okay,
dryness.
absolutely. But they don't, they sort of like drop it at that point. It's like nobody sits around and says, well, this is what I've used. This is how I've gotten through it. And when you talk about a hysterectomy, why would anyone put themselves through a surgery they don't need? That can really change their psyche and everything.
Well, exactly. But then again, too, you get into, I think that's the other part of it, of we are sexual creatures. Men, women, we are all sexual creatures. So you're going to take apart, and I've been told this, I don't see it. Apparently there is a sexuality about me that just kind of, it's there. It pours out of my skin. It's just who I am. I'm just like, I'm me in the world, like whatever. But it's there. I had to really think about that. Like, I had to think about the fact of, I'm going to be, again, 45 this year. I have a crappy back. I'm not having any more, I'm not going to carry any more biological children. That doesn't make me a less of a mom or a more of a mom or a geriatric mom. That just makes me an aging person. But that's a part of like who I am. And since all my bits and pieces work, I could still get pregnant, yes, but it's not advisable. It's not smart, and not healthy for my family. But that loss, like, it's a loss. Menopause, and that's the other thing too, is that there's a misnomer about that. There are a lot of women yes, do they lose their sex drive during menopause? Sure. Well, yeah, when your hormones are all out of whack, like, yeah, I'm sure you don't feel so great. But there are other women who become hypersexual because they don't have their period anymore. Let's go to town.
That's right.
So what do you do with that? And then sexual peaks, and then where you are in your relationships. There was a study that came out finally that talked about the fact that men are just as emotional about sex as women are. So that was very encouraging, because for a long time, that's how men feel close, is through sex.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
especially of a certain generation, because we don't talk about feelings and we don't talk about, like, the communication piece isn't there. So, and that follows through in relationships.
So, as individuals,
Hmm.
you know, there are, and we talked about this in the last segment, um, because your guest was about 10 to 15 years younger than you.
Hmm.
And I'm a little over 20 years older than you. But we looked at the three of us and we were having a lot of common ground. And
Hmm.
what is interesting is that as much common ground as we have, 20 to 70, our society still wants to separate us and say, no, you know, you're all different. Well, we're all different people, but it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that we can't have a commonality. And sexual drive is a commonality.
Well, we're women just by that
Yeah,
categorization alone. We
yeah,
identify as being women, so we're categorized. I think it's just a matter of, like, we have gender roles, and those have, throughout time, that's what they have. And we have stereotype gender roles, and we, as a society, it's truthfully, it's a cultural construct. What you choose to believe and what you don't, which also gets me and my children in trouble, because I go, well, this is what society's rules are, but these are the rules in the house. Very confusing, but at the same time, like, this is my belief system, and it's okay if my children choose to have a different belief system. Would I like my children to use sex as a coping mechanism because they're missing something in their life? No. If it happens, am I going to be like, oh, you're a whore, or, you're a male slut? No, I'm not. I'm going to look at it and go, why are you using sex the way that you do?
exactly.
And hopefully they will talk to me about it, and I don't have some Alex P. Keaton, like, no offense to Republicans, but a Republican that who all of a sudden is like, oh my God, my mom is nuts, which, that they feel that way about me, I'm okay with. They've already been in therapy. Why not start the therapy fund, continue, putting money into it? I have no problem with that. But honestly, like, I don't know how it's going to be. All I can do, which I've said throughout this whole entire podcast, is do what's best for me and my family, and not necessarily instill my belief systems, but at least having an open enough atmosphere where they can choose. They can choose to talk to me about sex. They can choose to not talk to me about sex. They can be abstinent the rest of their life. I don't care. I want them to be happy, and I want them to be whole individuals. And I don't, they already have enough hangups. They already have their quirky personalities. I don't want them to have to be how they express themselves sexually, how they feel about themselves sexually, to be one of them. I don't want them to feel bad or punishable that because they seek pleasure from, a sex toy. Or they think sex is icky and gross because there's people, swapping fluids. Okay. And then, to think about that, yeah, sex is kind of gross. If done correctly, it's very fun and really gross all at the same time. But I mean, as a parent, like, I think about the, like, all the STDs and the HPV and everything else that's running rampant. And having the conversation with my son and my daughter, all because she's probably growing up a little too young, then, like, and has learned about this younger than I would like, but it's knowledge and it's fact based. And Max should be able to put on a condom and know what it looks like and put it on properly to prevent pregnancy and HPV and every other STD, STI under the sun. But my daughter should know that as well to protect herself.
Absolutely.
And so, and I think I made the comment to Max, like, I don't care if it loses sensation. Good. Like, that's one less sperm I got to worry about. And there's millions of them. Like, and he was just like, okay, mom, you're gross.
Yeah.
Like, can I go over there? I'm like, I think that that's important. I think having a healthy view of sex is important. Do I think that it's important for them to watch porn? I actually do. At this age, no. So I don't want like, oh my God, she's like letting her 9-year-old watch porn. But no, we watch Victorious on Disney or Netflix or whatever station they pull it up on. And some of those have some really interesting, relationship things. So, but do I think that my children should watch porn eventually when they become teenagers or young adults? Absolutely, I do. Because and unfortunately for them, I want to be right there to kind of go, that's not realistic. This is a film. This is not, this is not how a girl's going to blow you. Sorry, Bailey, this is not how you're going to blow somebody. This is all for show. This is not how this happens. Because I want it to be realistic and I don't want it to be fantasy. At the same time with relationships, and on my Facebook page, and my friends can attest to this, and you can attest to that, I'm the queen of my own damn castle. So I'm teaching my daughter that, like, not that I don't need anybody, because I don't. I want somebody in my life, but I don't need them. I don't rely on that. I rely on myself to provide for my family. I think that's important for my daughter to know. She doesn't need to be saving. She's not a damsel in distress. She plays a great one, but she is not. And it's not my son's responsibility to save every woman in a bad relationship, nor is it right for him to think that he needs to provide and that he needs to be the sole provider. And that it really takes it takes a partnership.
Right. And it's interesting that you bring this up because probably about 15, 20 years ago, even though my husband and I were both working, I was the breadwinner. Okay. I had a better job and a better paycheck. And he really didn't like his job at the time. And I basically, gave him permission to say, hey, if I'm not happy, walk away from it so that you can find something that you can be happy doing. I didn't care how much he was going to make. But I remember my mother coming in with her philosophy, her training, and she said, why would you do that? He should be taking care of you. And I said, no. I said, I can take care of me and we can take care of each other as well. And I think that's an important message. And that message goes beyond the financial. It goes into the sexual relationship. It's not for me to be sitting around waiting for him to ask me to have sex with him. It's, I have those choices too. And growing up like I did, I didn't have girlfriends who wanted to discuss these things.
Well, could you even? Did you? I mean, you grew up in a very weird time, because in high school, you guys didn't talk about that. And then the sexual revolution hit while you were in college. So you go from a very conservative America, which, by the way, we're still a very conservative America, and we have not gone to we've not evolved in that aspect as much as we like to pat ourselves on the back. But then you go through the pill. You go through the evolution of women just don't go to college to get their MRS. And all of a sudden there's this smorgasbord of choices. So I don't necessarily think your girlfriends talked about it, but I got to tell you something. My girlfriends didn't talk about it either. I had a pure romance party about 16 years ago. So, and somebody very close to me said, Alicia, which vibrator should I get? Because apparently I'm the queen of vibrators. There's two vibrators in the world that I enjoy. And, and I'm not going to hype them up on here, but, people knows which ones, that I have suggested. And I was like, well, for this and for that. Well, now we're going to get into like women's sexuality. This woman who has not had very many sexual experiences gets her vibrator, says, oh my God, why have you not talked to me about this before? And it makes my OB appointment so much easier because there's, the uterus is a muscle.
Yep.
And here's the thing, but we don't talk about that either. We don't talk about the fact that for some women, because for whatever reason, that their pelvic floor spasms and sex is uncomfortable. Or the emotional aspect of it is that they're not into their partner and sex hurts. And it doesn't make sense because it's not that they're not turned on, or how come we need other stimulus, or oh, I want to do this with my partner, and play with toys with my partner, but then what are they going to think? And then it becomes all awkward and weird. And really what it comes down to is communication in a relationship. Whether it's, and I should say this, there are rules in everybody's relationships. And there is not a society standard cookie cutter thing. And a lot of people, I don't understand poly. Well, you know what? I get polyamorous relationships. I'm just not built that way. I'm a serial monogamist. I can only be with one person at one time. I'm too ADHD. I get it all confused, and then it's just gross. And I can only be in love with one person at a time.
Okay.
I love people, and I can love them but there are people who are not built that way. And you know what? That is okay. You know what? I love women's bodies. I think our God got it right. We have absolutely, the woman's art like shape is absolutely beautiful. Let me tell you something. Men, six packs, big arms, fantastic. Can I tell you something? A penis is a penis. It's crooked. It's this way. It's not all that exciting to look at. And I think all these women now are probably nodding their head when they listen to this, and they're going, she's not wrong. But women, there's different shapes to women's bodies, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Going to a strip club would be a female strip club. I would have fun. Seeing all of my guy friends act like fools, I was like, dude, just give me $100. I can make this last. We don't have to do, but you know what? This is fun. And seeing all of them act like stupid people, like it's fun. But it's not a turn on to me. It doesn't make me a lesbian. It doesn't anything. And you can have voyeurism, fetishes. You can have all of these things, and as long as you and your partner are in agreement with that, who cares? Who cares? And then you get into, this is really starting to bother me too, where people are all of a sudden having these very strong opinions about how homosexuality or bisexuality is portrayed on TV. And again, I'm a heterosexual female. I love men, love them, love the bad boys, love them. But to watch, again, fantasy versus reality TV, I always look at it like, oh, okay, yeah, like there are people kissing on TV. Whether it's female, male, female, doesn't matter.
Sure.
But looking through it through a homosexual lens, they have, it's offensive in that aspect, because they're like, they can't relate to it because that's not what they want. That's not their fantasy. And for people to be like, oh my God, 2 women kissed. Yes, 2 women kissed. Okay. And you know what? That's not turn on to me. It could be turn on to some men, which I got to tell you too. You know what? Lesbians, like other women, they don't like men. So they're not going to be like, ooh, here's this big ass show here. Come on in. No, sorry, I'm going to kill that fantasy right there. But but to be a lesbian and to see 2 women that that's a relationship piece, and people freak out over it, not as much as they do 2 men.
Well, the reality of it is we all have someone somewhere in our life who is gay. And if we can't accept them together, whatever it is,
Mhm.
they have to be feeling the same way about us because they don't understand our relationships. And I was watching something the other night on TV, don't even remember what program it was. And um, these two very good looking male actors, I don't know if they're homosexual or not,
Mhm.
but they were in a relationship and they were kissing. And yeah, that's who they are. And
Right.
that's what they're going to do. And why is it any worse than me kissing my husband and them watching us?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because you said they don't understand us and we don't understand them. That's not true. We all understand what love is, and we all understand what love is on a different level. How I love is going to be how different how you love. And how what I think is a roaring asshole, you could think is like a wonderful human being. And then here's the other part of it. Who cares? As long as they're a good person and you are happy and your life is fulfilled, who cares? But we all seem to want to have these opinions and we all want to have them out in the open. You know, do I want my people have always come like and have asked me this, and it makes me crazy because I don't know how to answer it. You know what? I didn't want my son to have ADHD, but he did. Because his life, it's going to make life harder. Oh, the realization, huh, guess what? Squirrel, shiny coin, mommy has it. My life was not easy. I didn't want that for my son. I want him to have a better life. I tell you though, part of the reason, and I tell this to people, and I sound like a shitty mom, and I'll own it. I love being a mom. I love my children. They are my whole entire world, and they complete me. But I faked my ultrasound when I had Bailey. Found out she was a girl and literally cried. But it wasn't because like, oh, because she was, oh, gonna be karma's a bitch, because you were, Alicia, it's gonna be hard. It was because I knew, because of everything I have studied, yeah, life is going to be hard for my daughter and she's going to be labeled certain things because she is a female. And I didn't want that. If Max were to be promiscuous and doing it safely, oh, he's a cool guy. Like, look at him. He's the man. My daughter, she's not a slut.
Right.
She's a whore. Well, then I guess we're all whores because you know what? There's a financial exchange within marriage that occurs. So we're all a bunch of whores. So let's just put that number there. But it really bothered me. It bothered me that my daughter is going to be looked at in a possibly in a sexual light because she's a very, and she is continuously, and I'm biased, a beautiful kid. And she's sassy and she's got a mouth and she's brash. And yeah, it's not going to be easy for her. And she is going to attract all sorts of wrong men and boys.
Well, and she likes, at least now at 9, okay, she likes being that girl. She likes feeling older. I mean, it's obvious in how she poses for pictures. Um, but that doesn't mean that, she can't get strong enough to overcome a lot of the things that she's going to be facing.
Well,
But
she
people,
can, but here's, she shouldn't have to. And that's why I cried. She shouldn't have to. Because I got to tell you, it's not the necessarily that she liked. Okay. She and I, we have a personality. We light up the room. We just do. And it's not an attention seeking thing. It can come off as that way. We like people. We like to, I shouldn't say that. We like to be around people and we like to have a good time and we like to have fun and we love to laugh. And we're just a bunch of like clowns. My son's shy in a lot of aspects and a lot of uncomfortable, and that's fine for him. But my daughter is a performer. She loves to dance. She loves to perform. She does not see anything in her behavior as being sexual whatsoever. And most of the time it's not. It's a funny pose. Does she like to be older? I don't think she knows the difference. She's got a mouth on her. She makes people laugh, and she's wickedly brilliant and funny. And she loves saying shit to see people's reactions because she's just like, okay, like, but she's been like that since day one. She legit, but I sit there and I cringe because if she were a boy and it was the same thing, she's not going to have the struggles or the explanations or, hey, Bailey, you know, or having the car, like she's got this cute little figure. She really does. And as she gets older, she continues to do it. She's going to continue to have a cute little figure. She's proportioned. She's got long legs. Unfortunately for my daughter, she's going to have a really hard time finding dresses and things that are appropriate. So Max's bar mitzvah is next year. And so he'll be 13, and we have to be at temple. And I found an adorable, what I think is an appropriate dress for temple. And so far, so good lengthwise. I get it. I try it on. I show my mother, which my mom does not have long legs, so she does not understand the struggle. And my mom, the first thing off of a picture, not of a picture of me, not seeing this dress on me, my mother says, it's too short. And I looked at her and I said, I'm not wearing a dress that goes down to my ankles. It's not happening. And I thought to myself, I would never, this conversation, like, it's not a conversation to be had. I don't feel my age. I don't act my age, whatever the hell that means. I don't subscribe to those things. That's going to make my daughter's life, if she continues on that path, it's going to make life hard.
Right.
But you know what? I have the same thought too of, what if my kids come out to me and say, oh, by the way, that I'm bisexual? I don't think I ever said to my parents, like, hey, by the way, I'm heterosexual. It was just an assumption. I would hope that my kids would feel safe enough and secure enough that they come out, Mom, this is my boyfriend. You know, that Max would come to me and say, hey, Mom, you know what? I got a girlfriend and a boyfriend. And I'm going to go, you're a greedy motherfucker. like, I mean, but honestly, okay, I hope that is not coming out and that it's so scary. Or if Bailey comes and goes, Mom, this is my girlfriend. And not just friends, Mom, she's my girlfriend. Okay, we're going to still have dinner. You're still going to be able to go upstairs, but that door is not going to be, well, we don't have locks on the doors, but the door's not going to be closed. Like, that's the rule. I hope that that's where we come to. I don't want to ever have to, like, of having this thing of like, Mom, or I'm questioning. Mom, I have no idea what turns me on. Okay. And there are some people that don't figure that out until their 50s, or what they like sexually or what they don't like sexually, because it's never really talked about. It's never talked about how that influences our relationships. It doesn't influence, we don't talk about it, so we don't know. And then we categorize it as being a freak or taboo. I mean, people like to play dress up. Okay, little girls like to play dress up. Let me tell you something. Big girls like to play dress up too. But if you don't have the conversation, how the hell do you know? You know, how do you know, like, hey, you know what? I don't like this, if you don't try it and talk about it. Again, it's communication.
Well, and that's what I love about us doing these podcasts, because it gets, even if our listening audience isn't sitting here talking with us, it's opening up a door for them to say, hey, I'm not the only one who has these questions in my mind. I'm not the only one who thought that sex means I just get in bed, lay down, wait for the guy to jump on top of me to tell me that he's done. Okay. And then it's like,
God, that would suck.
well, But there are many of us, including myself in the beginning, that's
Okay.
what it was, because I mean, I didn't know, okay? And even the books I read, they weren't like books today that made me say, "Oh, maybe I could try that."
Kama Sutra. So you never heard of that?
It's not that I didn't hear of it, I just never got around to it, you know? But but what I'm finding is that women want, and even men, they want to talk about these subjects, but we're still living in a society where we don't talk about it, but then we do something that appears to be wrong, that we haven't been told is right or wrong, and then we get in trouble.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not going to say that the Me Too movement isn't happening. I know it is happening, but I don't think it's happening to as many people as as we believe, because I think a lot of it is that we are not educated. So, you know, I remember not too long ago, when I say not too long ago, I was in between husbands, and I was at temple because I was preparing for my bat mitzvah at the age of 30. And the cantor kept getting closer to me and closer to me. I didn't think anything of it. But my girlfriend had come with me for my rehearsal. And when we walked out, she said, he was inappropriate. Well, he was an older man. Okay. I was 30. He probably was in his 60s or 70s. He was helping me prepare. I didn't think he was rubbing up against me. He
Mhm.
rushed against me. Okay. But from her angle,
Mhm.
she said it was inappropriate. And we just had a discussion about it recently. And she said, I'm surprised you never did anything about it. But to me,
Mhm.
that's not how I took it. And I think that's what's happening to some degree in our society today, that we sometimes are jumping to conclusions that things are happening because we are not educated enough. And sometimes things are happening and we're not educated enough to realize that it's inappropriate.
I don't think that. I think that we definitely know rape is wrong. We
Yeah.
absolutely, and that is the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement is that there have been sexual advances that were unwarranted, that were uncomfortable, and women didn't have a voice. Well, guess what? Women still don't have a voice. And it's comments, and it's very much of like, oh, well, that happened. Well, did it really happen? And don't get me wrong, there have been women who have used this to further gain
Right.
that it didn't happen to. So there is that is a small majority. There are way more people who have been raped multiple times, been put in horrible situations, um, who have been victimized and re-victimized. And if they go to tell their story, well, you put yourself in that position, and then and further puts that trauma. I think it's a matter of, does it need to blow up? Yes, but I got to tell you something. Women are just as guilty as men. And there are men who are raped and are taken advantage of. And they're in a sexual nature, they are used and abused the same as women. It's just not as the majority, and it's certainly not discussed, because that is a part of the masculinity that's been taken away. Well, I will say this, part of our femininity has been taken away. I posted something on Facebook because I was being really, I know we're going to all be shocked about this, snarky. Of, you know what? You never hear about lesbians attacking another woman half dressed. It's not the clothes, it's the person. I have the right to walk down the street naked if I want. Now, granted, I think, and nowadays, if anyone walked down the street naked, people would go, huh? And if something happened to me, I would be blamed for that. If something happened to that man, he wouldn't be blamed.
as long as he was a white man.
No, I'm not going to go there because that's not. We have race issues, we have tribal issues, we've had them from the beginning. It's written in our Constitution. We are very prejudiced people. That's neither here nor there. And there's a problem within the African American community. There's a problem within the Native American community about sexuality. How rape is viewed, how women are viewed, how men are viewed. So it's not just a race thing. And I mean, because when we can talk about this about Asian women, are then Asian women really taken advantage of because they're looked at because of the geisha, or there are just some men who are sexually attracted to Asians because you know what? They have the stereotype that they're submissive, that they're little playthings for a short period of time. So you want to talk about that? I mean, or you want to talk about, oh, well, she's from that side of the tracks, so she must got around, so she's a good side chick, and she might be a very good side chick. Who knows? We can go on those labels. It doesn't matter because you know what? It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. No is no is no. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, trans, you're a human being and you're saying no, and you are entitled to keep your own sexuality yours, and you have the right to have somebody invade or not invade. And I do use the word invade because even if it's consensual, it's still a barrier that's being given. And if you have emotions, well, sex, great, and if you don't, that's fine too. But yeah, the Me Too movement, no, it needs to happen. It needs to be brought to people's attention. But I think our climate nowadays is so horrific that everything is a hot button topic. We can't have a discussion. We can't say, oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what? 6 million Jews died. And anti-Semitic people don't like me because I'm Jewish. You know what? They're lost. And you know what? They're absolutely entitled to not like me because I'm Jewish. Honest to God, I don't care. Unless it infringes on my life and now you're putting my life and my family in jeopardy, I got problems. But you can go sit over there. You can walk across the street. You can say awful, hateful things to me. I'm not inviting people to do this, by the way. I just don't care. I just don't care. You are entitled to it, but you're not entitled to hurt another person over it.
Exactly.
And you're not entitled to do that to a gay person, or a bi person, a trans person, a white female, a black female, a Pacific Islander, a Haitian woman. We will go through all the cultures in the world. You're not allowed to do that to men either. And until that is absolutely we are more similar, we have to acknowledge our similarities and appreciate our differences instead of this finger pointing and this didn't happen and that didn't happen. Because honestly, now you're not only taking somebody's sexuality away, you're taking their identity. And any single gender, culture, it doesn't matter. There are good people in this world and there are bad people in this world. They call them white collar crimes. There are black collar crimes. There are blue collar crimes. You know what? People are selfish and they're hateful and they're out for themselves. And if they steal from one person to better themselves, they don't care. I don't like living in that world. That's not what I subscribe to. So just keep your hands out of my pockets and we're good. But that's where I think what we've gotten to. We have no more dialogues. And this is a very long ass monologue, but it infuriates me. And a lot of people, and I'm not picking on you, Auntie Kiki, I'm not, but there is your generation who kind of goes, well, with the Me Too. Well, yeah, because you guys didn't have a voice. And sexuality, all right, let's be blunt, because I don't know how else not to be. Women have been lifting up their skirts to get ahead. because that is honestly sometimes the way it had to be so they could take care of themselves and their family.
Right. I understand that.
So that being said, and it's their fault that they're it's a power differentiation. Instead of looking at it and saying who's the most qualified, and then who gets to judge who's the most qualified. And you can all take, yeah, I got a bunch of letters after my name, and I'm this crazy female in Michigan, and I'm a therapist, so woohoo, I'm not the authority. And that's why it's just, talking life with Alicia, because this is what goes through my head every day. And I turn on the news and I kind of go, well, of course somebody did this, because of course there was, a misunderstanding. Facebook, of course we're all angry about this. Oh, we're not angry about this. Oh, the Black Lives Matters movement. I understand where it comes from. I get why that happened. I also get we're in the middle of a pandemic, we're isolated, and we are all acting like caged animals. We are literally all acting like rats that are backed up in a corner. We need to be re-socialized when the world opens up. I don't know how to do that. I'm not in charge. So, and I don't want to be. But I know how we're all behaving. I'm not a snowflake. I'm not a sheep. Yeah, I'm very liberal and I'm an independent. Woo! And and I've been microchipped. And yeah, and I the one vaccine I wanted, it's like all over the news and my phone's blowing up. Like, no, I'm not blood clotting and I'm not, dying as of yet, but I might not be on event. So, but I was hesitant before. I was hesitant in the middle of it, and I'm hesitant afterwards. There's not a damn thing I can do about it. Couldn't control COVID, can't control the vaccine. I am not in control. I get that. So all I can do is live my life. But my friends who are anti-vaxxers, that's cool. I'm absolutely okay with that. My friends who don't want to wear a mask out in public and who's saying the virus isn't going to control their life, I'm okay with that. I have a bubble. Are you still my friend? Absolutely. Am I going to come and sit on your patio and have dinner with you? Probably not right now. But who knows? If we're 6 feet apart and I'm sitting there, and you're sitting over there and it's not a windy day, and and I can actually have some alcohol for once, like because of my gum surgery, maybe I will. But right now, I'm not so comfortable. That and I can't eat anything, so it's not, also a real pleasant person to be around. So, I mean, and it's all encompassing. And I think that's why we got to the whole thing. We started with sexuality. Of course, we'll end with sexuality because you got to have the big bang, right? Got to have a finale. It's not, worth it, which men and women will all agree. The big O is very important. But honestly, but consent versus not consent versus embracing your sexuality versus running away from your sexuality, doesn't matter what color you are, what culture you are, what religion. And people are going to like you for who you are, or they're going to hate you because you're affiliated with certain parts. Right. I don't hate Republicans. I have, and I'm going to use the cliche line, lots of my friends are Republicans. Friends who are Republicans. I have friends who are Jewish, who are Muslim, who are Hindi. I'm sure I've offended a whole bunch. I've got Catholic friends, Episcopal friends. I've got evangelical Christian friends who probably will listen to 2 seconds of this podcast. Turn that off. And then I have other ones that are, evangelics that we won't talk about sex in public, but will be secretly listening to this over and over again. I don't care. But that's me. And I wish society was more like that, was more accepting of the fact of like, you know what, at the end of the day, we all bleed. Our blood becomes oxygenated and it's red. And there are good people and there are bad people. And there is good sex and there is bad sex. And there is terrific sex and there's emotional sex. And then there's just plain fucking. That's it. That's life.
Well, I'm hoping maybe next month people will be invigorated by this because I always learn something about myself when I talk to you. And sometimes I've used the wrong term and I realize that's probably not what I wanted to say. And there are other times it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. And it's okay if we disagree because if we agreed on every point, it would get boring. It definitely would. But I think the big thing that we're getting out of this is that we have to learn how to have a conversation. And it starts at home, like you're doing with Max, which I think is terrific. Um, I didn't get to do that with my oldest son because he lived with his dad, but I've had those conversations with my youngest, and it it is such a change for me because again, my parents had those talks with my brothers,
Mhm.
but not with me. I remember sitting in another room trying to listen to what my mother was saying to my brothers. And when she found me there, I got punished and I was sent to my room because it wasn't for a girl's ears. And it wasn't until I became adult I thought, if it's not for a girl's ears, why was my mother talking about it?
Yeah.
So we all have something to learn. And you know what? We don't have to agree, but um, you opened up some avenues for me to think about. And I appreciate you for that.
Good. I always love coming and talking to you about God only knows what comes off the top of my head. Because I do. I do enjoy our talks, even if it's just the two of us. And I hope other people will come and feel open enough to talk or, you know, add their 2 cents in. I'm always open to that because, it's about reciprocity
Absolutely.
and
Well,
making a difference in the world.
make sure that Max knows that I'm wishing him the happiest 12th birthday because next year he'll be a teenager.
Yeah. And I'll still be a teenager.
Hey, you'll never change, and that's the beauty of who you are. And I appreciate you. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you
Thanks.
soon. Bye.
Bye.